It's one of the most beautiful things ever manufactured. Well, there could be a lot of those, but I've only got one in mind. I have always been a huge fan of British sports cars. The first car that I ever owned was a 1958 MGA. $800 I paid for it in 1963. It was British Racing Green. I had to keep up with my best friend, Richard Purley. He had a Triumph TR3. I'd been driving my granddad's 1954 Ford, and that Ford had only 5 moving parts, the steering wheel and the other 4 wheels. I think that Ford's fender weighed more than the MG. I can remember when I first drove this MG off the lot. It took me a while to get used to the steering because it instantly drove in the direction you pointed it. I had a lot of fun in that car. Steve Cobb, a friend in Bedford, Indiana, where I lived at the time, helped me learn to drive it efficiently. There was this road, I think it was the Tunnelton Road, where I pretended I was on a race course. I drove that MGA from Bedford to Chattanooga about 400 miles several times. And one of those trips, the car broke down at a stoplight in Glasgow, Kentucky. Strangely, on the return trip, it broke down at the exact same stoplight. Fortunately, it was easy to fix. On another trip, I was returning to Bedford from Chattanooga, and I was running late. I was to be the best man at a friend's wedding. I ran flat out on Interstate 65 from the Tennessee state line to Louisville. The car's top end was 105, and that's where it stayed. Why I never got stopped with the cops, I'll never know. On another Chattanooga trip, my grandmother rode all the way with me in that MG. That was an adventure. I kept that MG until I saw a Jaguar on the lot of Powell Deckard Ford in Bedford. Ran away from most of my friends. They could always snuff me in a drag race, but I could always wave bye-bye by the time we got to the middle of the Mitchell Straits on Highway 37. The Jags, then, were always breaking down, and the gearbox fried your leg, and they had terrible electric problems. But when you started it up, by God, it was a Jaguar. I didn't have that car very long. Turns out it had a cracked block, and they said it would need to be sent to Coventry, England for repairs. That was so traumatic, I can't remember how I got rid of it. By that time, I was getting married, and I had to transition to American Iron, a 1965 Mustang. Not bad, but it wasn't a Jaguar. Jaguar had then come out with the XKE, to my way of thinking, the most beautiful car ever made. And that's not just my opinion. Enzo Ferrari said the same thing. The E-Type Jaguar evolved from the D-Type racing car to the XKSS, the road version of the D-Type, to the XKE. It was always my dream to own an XKE, but it never came to be. We moved to Indianapolis in 1969. Erica, my wife, and I visited a Jaguar dealership. There on the showroom was a brand new 1969 XKE. It was even British Racing Green. Then I looked at the sticker price. I was amazed and said, who would ever pay $9,000 for a car? Well, I would have, but I didn't have the money. So I never got my dream car. I did own another Jag, a 1999 XJ, but it wasn't an XKE, it was a sedan. I watched the Jaguars over the years. In the early 90s, Ford bought Jaguar along with Aston Martin, Volvo, and Land Rover. Ford didn't fare so well. They never made a profit with Jaguar. Ford sold Jaguar and Land Rover to Tata Motors in 2008. Jaguar sports cars disappeared for several years. Oh, they had the XK and the XKR, but that didn't really take off, for me at least. In 2013, Jaguar introduced a successor, the venerable XKE, the EType. And by the way, a true fan refers to the XKE as an E-Type. The EType is okay, but it ain't no E-Type.